Hello YouTube. So I posted my first video the other day, and I wanted to make another video. Something I want to follow up on that I mentioned in my first one was rereading books, and which is something I've been doing quite a bit recently. I reread Shogun, which is one of my favorite books ever, which I was inspired to do so by the TV show, which I thought was pretty good. I don't think it's as good as the book. Although generally speaking, movie and TV show adaptations often are better than the books. But I would say in that case, I don't think it is. But adaptations have an advantage for one. But anyhow, they have the advantage of hindsight. But another book I've reread recently that I really love is The Three Musketeers. One of my favorite books ever. I read this book when I was a very young kid. It was one of the very first books I ever loved. And the copy I have now, I've had for about 10 years. I've had to have read this at least 8 times in my life. So I got the copy right here. And I just kind of wanted to bring up why I think it's a good idea to reread books and why I personally enjoy it. It's just these things, when you're young, you see things very differently. It's almost like you have a fog over you, your whole, as a young person, and you get older and, you mature and you see things very differently. And that's how I felt reading this book. But it was also like seeing some old friends again and, being in that world again and getting to enjoy that story. It just meant a lot to me to be back there, and maybe there's some nostalgia in that, but, I personally like it a lot, and I find it very enjoyable to reread books. And even if they're large books, or it's really not practical when you have a bunch of books on your to read list, and and there's just all kinds of stuff you want to get to. Rereading books just seems like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But generally speaking, I only buy hard copies of books that I want to read again in my life. Otherwise, I read most books digitally. I would say 85% of the time I read books digitally. I keep hard copy books here. I read hard copy books, but generally speaking, I read most of them digitally. So I just want to touch on that and why I think it's a good idea to do it. I think if you've never done it before, or maybe you haven't done it very much, or haven't done it in a long time, reread some of your favorite books, and I'm telling you, it'll be a completely different experience. I mean, you'll catch things you didn't catch the first time. Maybe you were reading quickly the first time. I mean, just different life experiences. Since the last time you read it, you will experience it differently. And I think it's an enjoyable experience personally. And of course, that's just been the way that's just been my experience with it. And it's something I'm going to continue to do. I think I may have mentioned this, but I reread Shogun also recently. But there are some other books I want to read again. I'm currently reading The Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell. The first book in this series is The Winter King, which is probably the one that's the most well known. But there's been a TV show made about that. I read that. I read the whole trilogy probably about 8-9 years ago now. Bernard Cornwell is my favorite author. I've read just about all of his stuff. There might be a few I've missed, but I plan on rereading all of his books. He's getting older now. I don't know if he's going to write anything else. I hope he does. I would love for him to re-release the Warlord Chronicles. I'd like to see him, rework it a bit and make it one big book. I think that'd be a great project. But he's never been that kind of author. He's never been real pretentious. He doesn't really write really huge books. He's kind of pulpy, honestly, and that's what I like about him. When I read, I want it to be an enjoyable experience. I like fun books, I read big stuff and more kind of literary things, but generally I kind of like pulpy action adventure stuff. Wilbur Smith is another author I like a lot. But some other stuff I thought I maybe talk about would be just what I plan on reading. So today I was looking through Amazon. I ordered some books. I guess because if I'm going to make some videos, I might do some book hauls and stuff and make it look like I'm an actual reader, I guess, and show some hard copy books, which I have some here. I have a whole bunch I can show off, but maybe just something for some channel content. Give me an excuse to buy some books. But I discovered on Amazon that Titan Press, which is also Titan Books, I believe, I'm pretty sure it's the same company, who makes the Conan the current Conan comic book. I don't know if anyone has read that. I also read comic books, not a ton, but I read them here and there. I used to read them a lot when I was a kid. But I'll pick some stuff up here and there. I was recently reading some comic. I read a whole bunch of Superman after I watched the Superman movie. I thought that was a good time to read that. But so they're making the current ongoing Conan series, which has been really great. I read it recently and I really enjoyed it. I think they're up to like 25 issues along with some specials. There might be a mini series that goes along with it too. I haven't read all of it, but the first 20 issues or so I've read, and it's pretty good. But they have also been releasing novels of Conan by a couple different authors. One of whom is John C. Hawking, who wrote a great Conan pastiche novel, The Emerald Lotus, I believe is what it's called, which makes me want to read that again. But they got pretty sure it's two new books by John C. Hawking, Conan books. There was a couple other authors that had done some Conan books for Titan. They've released some short stories. I picked up the Call one on Kindle. It was only $1, so I paid for that. I'm gonna read it. It's like 30 pages. I can read that in an hour. So I'm gonna check that out. I haven't seen any Call. I don't see much Robert E. Howard stuff like pastiche besides Conan. They released a Solomon Kane novel. I should have took notes on who the author was. But I think they market it at least as the first Solomon Kane novel ever. And I'm going to read that. I'm going to check it out. It looks like it'd be fun. Generally, my favorite genre is historical fiction. That is what I typically read. I read actual nonfiction history too, and just nonfiction in general. I like. But I'm going to check these out. Maybe I'll review them on the channel, and if anyone's interested in comic book stuff, I can cover some of that too. I buy some collected editions and stuff, some omnibus editions. They can be fun. I like going back and rereading stuff I used to really like. I don't read a ton of new stuff, but I will here and there. I'm a DC man when I do read comic books. Anyhow, but I really want to read this Titan Press stuff. I think it looks really interesting. They had quite a few short stories up. There was a Cull short story. A couple. The guy who did the Solomon Kane novel also did a Solomon Kane short story. There was also what was it? They did a Cull one. I don't know if they did any Brain Back more, but that would be interesting too. I would check that out. I have this that I read a while back. I probably read this about a year ago. It's the collected Solomon Kane by Robert E. Howard. Robert E. Howard's great. I'm fascinated by the pulp era of fiction. It just blows my mind that at one time there were magazines with short stories in them and serialized stories. That were these magazines that were whatever 150 pages long or whatever they were. Weird tales and stuff. And people went to the store and bought these and read them for pleasure. Young people, right? People in my age group. I mean, I'm not super young, but the point was that this was, something people did is just fascinating to me. So I really like the pulp era of fiction. I want to read Dashiell Hammett stuff. He wrote some crime novels and stuff, but he was in a lot of pulp magazines. But anyway, I think that would be pretty interesting to check out, and I really want to read it. But yeah, I just find that whole pulp era super interesting, and I find this interesting what Titan Press is doing these short stories. I don't know if they're going to collect them. It's just you could buy them individually on Amazon for Kindle, and I think they'll be kind of fun to read, and you can read them quick, So I think they're worth checking out, for $1. Like, can't really go wrong with that. I wish it had been in Kindle Unlimited, which I have. I have Kindle Unlimited. I use Audible sometimes too, but not that much. I'm not crazy about audiobooks, but I use them here and there. Maybe I'll discuss that some. What counts as reading a book and being a good consumer? So, which I'm a pretty good consumer. I'm buying Kindle editions and hard copies of books all the time. So, I'm sure the publishers love me. They probably love double dippers like that. I also use I live in Ohio. I also use the public library app, so I could talk about that some too, and how to do that and how to use that. But you can get books digitally on there. You don't even ever have to go. You don't ever have to leave your house to go to the library. You can just rent books digitally for free. They have all kinds. It's a great app. At least the Ohio Public Library is. You know, you can get TV shows and cartoons for your kids and all kinds of stuff on there, and have it right on your TV, and it's pretty great. Really great thing. I don't think enough people know about it. You know, I'm sure they have it in every state in the United States. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the case. So it's OSP for Ohio, but I don't know what it's called for other states. But you know, at least for me, just you punch in your library card number, you can stay signed in. There's the waiting list. They only have so many copies. You would think digital books, they'd have unlimited copies, but it does not work that way. So obviously they have to pay for these licenses. But anyhow, so sorry, this video is probably a little all over the place. Maybe I'll take more notes in the future and invest in a stand. Sorry for the shakiness of the camera. Like I said, I'm still kind of getting the hang of this. So I don't know if any of that was interesting, but I think this Titan Press stuff is interesting, and I can cover some more topics like rereading books and stuff again in the future. Anyhow, maybe I'll get the covers of some of the short stories. I'll try to see if I can edit them into the video. Anyway, thank you, YouTube. Goodbye.